What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Air It Out podcast presented by Inside the Hashes. My name is Juan Pablo Cornin Camargo, and I'm joined on a streaming site filled with football experts. I got Avery Collins, Darius Riddick, and Darren Braxton on the call. What is up, guys?
Yeah, Matt Ryan for president, you know what I'm saying? Julio for vice president, and of course your boy Alex Smith. Alex Smith, we're gonna throw him in at
Secretary, maybe treasurer.
No, Treasury. I give him Treasury.
Secretary of State. I like that.
Secretary of State. Okay, that's
I like it.
That's dope.
For a lot of viewers who are a little confused right now, no, Jerome Jones is not the host of this week's episode. He's actually our producer behind the glass. I show him off, but I really don't know how to do that. Oh no, there he is. Oh no, he's gone. But it's no surprise for people who have watched the Air It Out podcast since last year. I used to be the host of the Air It Out podcast, but then I had to go away for a bit, finish up my master's, and now I'm back, baby.
Yeah, that's right. You know what I'm saying? Look at that boy. He got the grease. Mm-hmm. Come out. Yeah.
Got the fresh cut, wearing the fresh Syracuse logo shirt.
He's ready.
Red my orange, and I got my usual McDonald's cup right on the side. Can't get enough of that Diet Coke, guys. And this is not a sponsorship, though I wish it was.
All right.
You know, I'm just reveling in the fact that, that I'm back in this sort of activity. I can't tell you how much I missed doing this type of stuff and being able to talk to people who can relate to what I'm thinking and what I'm talking about. And, Avery, especially, I miss your hot takes, man, especially your Falcons takes. Those were some of my favorite parts of doing the show. Darius, your chats on the Ravens is always hilarious to me. I don't know. I'm sorry. No, that was Darren. Excuse me, Darren. My bad. But you ever say that Sam Darnold doesn't win a playoff game, man? I'll go off. You watch it. Like for those that don't know, like Darren said that that Lamar Jackson would win a Super Bowl before Sam Darnold wins the playoff game. We'll see that, my man. We'll see that. And Darius, you already know, man. I'm a Jets fan. You're a Patriots fan.
Oh, yeah. Cam Newton for MVP, man. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm gonna say, man. Cam Newton for MVP.
I'm gonna say this. Juan, you're gonna appreciate my hot take.
Ooh.
I'm already feeling the heat just coming in from the screen there, Avery. We got a bunch of good content for everyone today. We'll be going in from if we were NFL players, would we opt out? We also are going to discuss which second-year quarterback will make the biggest leap in going into 2020, and a little bit about whether or not The Rock did the XFL a favor by buying it. But before we get into that, let's get into the rundown. And for today's rundown, we have, to start off, a reunion between Jadeveon Clowney and the Seattle Seahawks. Seems unlikely as Seattle is showing interest in veteran pass rushers Clay Matthews and Everson Griffin. Matthews spent last season with the Rams, his lone year out of Green Bay, while Griffin had been with the Vikings since 2010. And speaking of free agents, Raiders running back Jeremy Hill was released yesterday. Hill was with the Silver and Black for all of 2 days. With Hill even commenting on Twitter saying, quote, "That was fast." Hill was last with the Patriots, Darius, in 2018 before tearing his ACL after week 1. So fragile right out the gate. And moving on to as of today, the NFL reports that 56 players so far have tested positive for the coronavirus, which is around 2% of players currently on rosters. Each player is designated to the reserve/COVID list, but no timetable has yet been set to come off of it. And then moving into a little bit of college football, it was reported today that the University of Maryland head coach has formed a new coalition that, quote, seeks to identify and groom coaches of color, both male and female, to rise to head coaching positions. The group is headed by a board of directors that consists of Hall of Fame tight end Ozzie Newsome, Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin, Alabama head coach Nick Saban, among many other big names. And moving back into the NFL, the Buccaneers are releasing third-year cornerback N.J. Stewart, whom they drafted in the second round of 2018. It was expected, given that that Stewart had only had 68 tackles and 4 pass deflections in the last 2 years. And we're going to end today on the fact that today was the deadline for the player opt-out options to start. As of 4 p.m. today, 66 players have opted out, with big names including wideout Alan Hearns, linebacker Dante Hightower, and safety Patrick Chung. And so far, only 4 teams have not had any players opt out. This is Steelers, Chargers, Falcons, and Rams. And that ends it for the rundown. Guys, anything there you want to comment on? I want to start off with Avery over there because I know he got something to say.
Well, number one, I would like to say I'm happy that none of the Falcons players opted out. That's amazing. I believe Tre'Davious White just opted out as well, so that's another big name that I believe the Bills are going to sorely miss him.
Actually, he did not opt out.
He didn't. Okay.
So you say you're playing.
It was just some rumors around. I guess
it was speculation. He was contemplating it. Fans were calling him selfish for thinking about it. He then ranted that it was not selfish, and then he decided not to opt out.
Gotcha. Okay. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a bunch. For me, it's the whole Jadeveon Clowney thing, and you would rather have Clay Matthews, an old and not, I'm not going to say washed, but he is not producing the way he did in Green Bay. And then Everson Griffin, who again I think is actually an underrated rusher, even for his veteran status. But I mean, you're talking about Jadeveon Clowney, who is top 3 in quarterback hits and pressures the last 3 seasons. He's younger than both guys, and we know what he can do when he's locked in, and he already knows your system. I just don't. To me, I just don't get it. It just doesn't make too much sense to me. So I would go with Clowney. That's just me.
Darius, I know that with missing Dante Hightower, there's a lack of pressure coming in out from the middle. Do you think this is a fair move for Seattle to consider? Should the Patriots be considering Jadeveon Clowney?
I mean, there has been a little bit of speculation that, a little bit of interest in the Jadeveon Clowney, but I think with Dante Hightower obviously opting out due to having a newborn, which is highly expected, and I respect his decision to opt out. I think we have, some young talent. Obviously, we drafted young. We went with Josh Uche out of Michigan. So I think obviously we're going to miss Dante Hightower because he is a veteran. He is a leader on our defense. But I think we have, a solid young core that can, come in and produce somewhat until we get Dante Hightower back next season. So I'm gonna miss him, but I think we have a solid enough young core to help us keep that defense elite.
Darren, anything you want to add?
Not about no Patriots. I don't want to talk about them. But I do like the Maryland coach. That is a very, very intriguing thing he started up. And the people that he has that he's working with, Ozzie Newsome, the Alabama coach, those are guys that know what they're doing, know how to develop good coaching. And I got to commend him on that, especially when it comes to the minority group, because it's such a disparity in the NFL right now. And even in the college ranks, it's a disparity when it comes to minorities, whether it be Black, Latino, whatever you want to call it. Like, we need more of those guys. We need more. They're just as smart. They know just as much. And we need them to have that opportunity to show what they can do. So I really like what I hear from that. So that's my main thing.
What's surprising is that out of all the names that were included out of this board of directors for the group, I noticed one that I thought was particularly interesting missing. And thank you, Jerome. Mike Locksley is the name of the head coach for the University of Maryland. But the name that I thought was missing from this board of directors was the one head coach who I believe has been doing the most to increase diversity in the NFL, and that is Bruce Arians. The man has brought in so many men and women of color onto the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to kind of train them. He's had Byron Leftwich take turns in play calling to become much more of a head coach offensively. He took Todd Bowles to become a head coach of the Jets from 2015 to 2018, and it's just, for me, just a little surprising that he didn't make this board of directors.
It's a little surprising. It's a little surprising, especially like you said, with everything that he's trying to push on the NFL level. But I guess in a sense, if this is strictly leaning toward more collegiate, then I guess it makes more sense in that regard. But definitely somebody like Bruce Arians would definitely be on my radar as well. I mean, he's one of my favorite coaches. So,
you guys, anything else you want to add before we finish up the rundown talk for today?
Let's get started.
All right, let's get this started. The first thing we're going to talk about is we mentioned it at the top of the hour, and that's, we've seen so far, as we said, as of 4 p.m. today, 66 NFL players have opted out of playing for the 2020 season. Now, opting out isn't really, it's a little bit hard to understand sometimes. Just to break it down a little bit, if you opt out for this year, your contract that was applied for the 2020 season rolls over into 2021. And if you are a player that is opting out for concern, you get a $150,000 stipend. If you're a player who is at higher risk or has a family member that is of higher risk, you get a $350,000 stipend. The stipend comes technically as a loan out of your salary heading into 2021 if you have a longer than 1 year contract. So guys, point blank range, let's say you are NFL players. You are signed with a team for, let's say, 1 year, and going into the 2020 season. Would you opt out of playing this year?
Who's going?
I'll give it to Darren first, since he was the last to speak on the rundown.
All right. So, if we're talking about particularly my situation, I have a new fiance and I don't have any kids. So for me,
I think we lost Darren there for a minute. I thought he was just pausing for dramatic effect. Darius, I'll hand you.
I would opt out, and the reason why is it's still too many unknowns. We look at the NBA; they have a bubble, right? And they're going in their second straight week, I believe, with 0 positive COVID tests. Now, I understand the NBA is smaller; it's not 53 players and coaches and different things like that. But they're in a bubble. You look at the NHL in a bubble, same thing, 0 positive COVID tests. Even Major League Soccer in a bubble. And I get it. Like I said, the NFL, you can't really put us in a bubble. And like I said, there's too many unknowns. So far, the only thing that I really see is players are saying, okay, the NFL is doing is, hey, we're going to provide positive tests. And then if you test positive for COVID, you have to self-isolate yourself in your home. If I have a family and I have kids, I'm going out there and I'm exposing myself. Then I come back home and I could potentially put my family at risk. The NBA players are not doing that because they're isolated. So they're isolated for 3 months and then they travel back home. So let's say realistically, even if they were to get COVID, they're still isolated. And when they go home, they're not putting their family too much at risk. That is why you have guys like Dante Hightower, who just had a newborn, and saying, hey, you know what? I'm not putting my newborn in risk. Marquise Goodwin from the Philadelphia Eagles just had his first kid, I believe. Same situation. My family comes first. It's bigger than football. So for me, I'm opting out. And, the stipend is cool and different things like that. But I felt like if the NFL really had, let's say, a clear plan, then I would be like, you know what, maybe I'll play. But for me, it's like they don't really have a clear plan to really protect us, besides saying, we're going to offer these helmets and different things like that. So I wouldn't play.
I think for me, it's a case by case thing, right? I think it depends on the person and their situation. So for me, right? I don't have children or anything like that, and because I don't have children, I wouldn't mind playing, right? I don't have young children, or I'm not around too many elderly people who are at high risk and different things like that, right? So, I wouldn't mind playing, especially because if it's a situation where I know that the COVID is going on, I would isolate myself from, family and friends during the season. I would just, this would be one of those seasons where I'm like, listen, this year I'm just going to focus in on football. I need y'all to respect that, and as well, it's for your safety. Like, for example, my father, you know what I'm saying? He has asthma, right? So I don't want to be around him myself to COVID, just because of the fact that, again, to Darius' point, we're not in a bubble. So I'm going to be flying and going all over, all over the place. So with that being said, I would personally isolate myself from my family and friends during this season because I don't have children that I have to care for. I would still play, but I don't have any problem with anybody who decides to opt out, even if they don't have children. Even if it's just for their own personal safety and their own just conscience, I have no problem with that. Again, this is bigger than football. Football is a game. Tre'Davious White alluded to that. Like, it's a game, and it's played for a certain amount of time, and then life goes on. So it reminds you that life is way bigger than just this moment in time. That you're able to play NFL football. So I have no issue with anybody opting out. I think I think a lot of people might.
We're having a lot of
We lost
technical
Avery there for a
difficulties
minute.
today.
Nah, it's all right though.
A lot
I
of
think every got like the main point across. He wouldn't. It'd be a case by case basis. But then that kind of poses the question. Oh, hey, Avery.
Right.
Avery. So Avery, you were finishing your thought, but as you were speaking about what you were thinking, it kind of brought back a particular situation that is pretty interesting. So far, out of all the opted out players, none of them has been a starting quarterback. All 32 starting quarterbacks are accounted for as of right now with regards to not opting out. So let's say that you are a starting quarterback for a franchise instead of just like some regular player. You are the guy. Would you still opt out? Avery, I'll start with you.
No, I would still play, especially knowing that what I mean, quote unquote, to the franchise. If I'm the starting quarterback, I'm a franchise guy. Then again, if I don't have children and I don't have these different things, I'm going to play. And more importantly, I'm a competitor. That's another thing. I'm a competitor, so I just love getting out there and when it's your profession and it's something that you're passionate about, it's something that you do whether you make money or not. You just want to get out there and compete at the end of the day, and you miss it, right? You kind of have that itch, and you once you're accustomed to doing certain things, it's like your body can go through withdrawal. You'll know.
Then we just lost Avery again, but it's all right. Darius, how about you? Tell me, if you're a starting quarterback, would you want to be opting in or opting out? And a little comment from Jerome. One thing I was thinking was how if you're on the franchise tag, how are you kind of forced to play? And good point to make, Jerome. But at the same time, it's like, you may be forced to play, but does that franchise tag carry over? Still a little complicated on the numbers there. Avery, if you want to finish your thought before we move on to Darius real quick. Avery?
Say that again.
You want to finish your thought real quick before we move on to Darius? Hello?
I mean, all I'm saying is that I'm a competitor, so I will want to get out there and compete. That's it.
All right, Darius, anything you want to add to that, or is it a rebuttal?
Now when you put it as a starting quarterback, it becomes a little bit more difficult because you are the face of the franchise and you're gonna have a lot of coaches and players like, hey, you're the face of the franchise. Are you gonna play? I think when you draw that question, it becomes a yes. I would play. Avery made a great point. I would put myself in my own bubble. I would, if I have a family, I would tell them, hey, listen, you need to go somewhere and isolate yourself until the season is over, and I'm just gonna stay here because I don't want to put my family at risk. So I think when you draw that question, and I think these players know that. I think these big guys like Patrick Mahomes, the Tom Brady's, the Lamar Jacksons, they're probably thinking about this because Tom Brady has kids. Patrick Mahomes doesn't, but he has a wife. So it's like if you got to isolate yourself by your own means, by just putting your family somewhere and staying in your house, and then like you say, you're doing a lot of traveling from state to state. Then I would play in that sense, especially because I feel like the backlash if a guy like Patrick Mahomes were to opt out, especially signing that big contract, oh man, that backlash would be like why are you doing this? You don't have kids and X, Y, and Z. So, but I think when you draw that question on, I definitely would. Now I would play since I'm like the face of the franchise.
Dan, before we lost you, we talked about if you were an NFL player, would you opt out? Then I posed the question, well, what if you were a starting NFL quarterback? Would you still opt out? So now I knew you said that you would, but now I want to ask you again, as a starting NFL quarterback, would you opt out?
So I actually didn't get to finish, but my thing would mainly be even if I was a regular player, it's more of my family situation. I've always been more of a family guy, and I want the safety of my family to be number one, especially when it comes to just this particular year. So it would really depend on who's around me, who would I always have to be around. I know that who I'm always around personally, they take very good care of themselves and they make sure they're in a particular where the COVID is, they have their precautions and measure done. But I would still have to opt in just because of how much I love it and I know that they're doing right. Now, if I'm a starting quarterback, there's really no option for me. Yes, you have to worry about the COVID, but when you're the face of a franchise, especially the guys like Aaron Rodgers, like Darius was saying, the Patrick Mahomes of the world, the Lamar Jacksons, the Tom Brady's, those guys do not have the option almost really because their team depends on them. Their entire team, not just the offense, but the offense, the defense, the special teams, the organization counts on them to be that leader and show, hey, I'm here. I know what I need to do to take the right precautions to make sure I can play, and I'm going to put myself in the best position to be able to play. So, for me, if I was a starting quarterback, I would have to play. I feel like I wouldn't have that option to just say no, like some other people. Now, I can understand, like Marcus Goodwin, if it's some type of circumstance like that. Yes, I can understand that a little bit better. But being the face of the franchise and being that guy, it puts a lot more pressure on you to say no than it would be if you were just a regular player. If that makes sense to you guys.
It
all depends.
That's tough because I think we value quarterbacks entirely too much. I think saying that a franchise quarterback is different than a regular player. What's a regular player? Anybody who plays on that team is risking their safety when they go out there. And we're talking about skill players more so probably. I mean, they get more injured on a regular basis than quarterbacks. So if we're talking about somebody more valuable to their team, I would say a skill player or a lineman is more valuable than a quarterback. Quarterbacks can come in and be 6th, 7th round draft picks and end up winning the Super Bowl. Tom Brady. So for me, it's like
how many of those really are there?
I get that, but at the same time, you want somebody who can stay the course. That's all you want from your quarterback. Don't turn the ball over, stay the course, and put us in the best position to win. Your skill players and your linemen, they're the people who actually win the football game for you, not the quarterback.
And I brought that question up, because a lot of there's quite a 5 quarterbacks right now that are, they just finished their rookie season, they're going into their sophomore season, and that second season is an important one in the development of a quarterback to see what direction his career is going to go. And what that brings us to our second topic of today, which is which second-year quarterback is set to break out and which one is set to fail. And now I'm only counting 5 of these quarterbacks. Is the Giants' Daniel Jones, the Broncos' Drew Lock, the Washington team's Dwayne Haskins, Arizona's Kyler Murray, and the Jaguars is Gardner Minshew. I'm taking out Ryan Finley. I'm taking out Jarrett Stidham. I'm taking out Will Grier and Doug Hodges, all right, because they are not caliber starters.
Fear the duck.
So, Darren, real quick, because we lost you for a while. Out of the 5 that are qualified to make the leap this year, who do you hitch your bets on?
So you gotta go with the best supporting cast, people. Kyler Murray. The boy was bad last year. He, in the words of Stephen A., that's a bad man right there. He was bad last year, and you did nothing but make sure he has a nice line in front of him now to help with the protection. You got and re-signed Kenyon Drake to give him a efficient running back in the backfield with him. And on top of that, the main thing, people, he got D-Hop. He got Mr. Number 8 on the top 100. The number 2 wide out in the league, determined by his peers. That man, along with Larry, along with Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella, it's stacked right now for him. I mean, it's stacked for him. I feel like Kyler Murray will do excellent this year. Excellent. And I'm telling you, with my hot take, you're going to understand why. But if we got to say one that's going to slump, I'm going Gardner Minshew. That's my slump right there. The team around him is just, it's not there. Like, I don't think he's going to regress too much, but out of all the jumps that all the other quarterbacks I feel like can make, he's going to make either the smallest or he's just going to stay the same.
All right, Darius. So he has Kyler at the high, Gardner at the low. Who do you have on both categories?
So for high, I'm kind of stuck between two players. So I'm stuck between, obviously, the given choice I think we all can agree on is Kyler Murray. We know what he did last year, offensive rookie of the year, threw for over 3,000 yards, and you add the weapons that he has. But I'm going to go with a very wild card. I'm going to say Daniel Jones out of New York. And I think that you give him a full offseason. You give him, obviously, we know what he can do with Saquon Barkley out of the backfield. He has Golden Tate, Evan Ingram, Darius Slayton, who I think is going to have a very, very solid second year. I think Daniel Jones is going to take a leap. Now, it may not be a significant big leap, but I definitely think he's going to take a leap in his numbers, and I think as far as wins too. But like I said, Kyler Murray, Darren hit it on the nail. I mean, you add in a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, you give him Larry Fitzgerald, who's arguably one of the best receivers of all time. Then you add in Andy Isabella, Christian Kirk, and a solid running back. You know, there's still questions on the offensive line, but he's very mobile, so he can get out the pocket and throw on a run. So obviously, I think that slump, I'm gonna go with Gardner Minshew too, just because it's to me that Jags team, that's not the same Jacksonville Jaguars team we saw with Blake Bortles. Obviously, even on an offensive standpoint, they do have weapons, but I'm not really a big believer in Minshew just yet. I think he's gonna go in that second year sophomore slump, but I think after that, going into his third year, just like I think Baker's gonna do, I think he's going to start to slowly come along and start to produce. But I definitely think Gardner Minshew is gonna have not a bad season where he throws more interceptions and touchdowns, but I don't think his numbers aren't gonna be as what people are thinking they're gonna be. So definitely, that man right there. If he shaves his beard by week 3, then maybe he does some wonders. Maybe he takes that Jags team to 6 or 7 wins. But right now, I definitely think he's gonna have a slump.
I don't think you can deprive the world of Gardner Minshew's stash and expect him to succeed because of it. That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, Brady with the hair. I'm just saying, man. He's not Brady, but some people cut their mustaches and they do wonders.
Avery, real quick, quarterbacks that you think will have a bump and the other who will have a slump, real quick. Hello?
Avery?
Real quick while we get Avery back. Wild card people, Drew Lock. I like him. Plenty of weapons.
Plenty of weapons. Yes.
Cortland Sutton. And then you got a double tandem in the backfield with Melvin Ingram, Phillip Lindsay, and you still got Royce Freeman back there just chilling in the background. Listen, he has a nice lineup. Telling you, man, the AFC West is gonna look good.
That's gonna be a very competitive division. Good. Very competitive.
So we're gonna be just heard back. We're gonna be losing Avery a bit for this segment of the show, and we'll see when he comes back. But to fill it up, I'll kind of give my quick take on it real quick. On a bump, I'm gonna give it to Drew Lock. Obviously, I think he's gonna have a good year. Not just because of the weapons that he has now. and because of the new coach of Pat Schumer coming in as he was a much better offensive coordinator when he was with the Vikings than as a head coach than he was with the Giants. But it's also the fact that Locke has one of the top defenses in the Denver Broncos defense working for him, getting him those turnovers and putting him back on the field. Von Miller and Bradley Chubb on the edge coming in. I forget the name of the safety, the standout
Justin
safety.
Simmons.
Justin Simmons. A rising star at the safety position. Sure, they lost one of their top players, their top corners in Harris over to the Chargers, but they can make up for the slack if the defense can stay solid for another year. So yeah, Drew Lock I think will take the highest leap over. As a down year, I'm gonna have to say it's not Gardner like you guys. I don't agree with you guys at all whatsoever on that. I'm gonna say Dwayne Haskins. And I'm going to say Dwayne Haskins because I say that Dwayne Haskins might not even see the field this year. We cleared that Alex Smith is healthy to play now. His leg is looking good. He's doing football activity. How long will it be before Ron Rivera considers this proven winner, this aged veteran who knows an offense pretty well, and put him in the starting job in order to start Washington off on a good track? Whereas Haskins, a lot of people projected him to be a project quarterback who still has some to learn. And even though he improved throughout the course of the end of the season last year, he's still young. He played in a simple quarterback-friendly offense in Ohio State, so he still has to transition to the NFL, which could take another year sitting behind a game manager and Alex Smith. So that's my pick, Dwayne Haskins for the slump.
Wow.
It's not bad.
Yes.
Listen, you gotta understand. One, Dwayne Haskins, the weapons around him is not upgraded too much. He has improved, but he's still a work in progress. We see that from last year. Yes, he improved a little bit as he went along, but it's still going to take time for him. It is. And if Alex Smith comes back by, let's say, week 6, and he starts to look like the Alex Smith of old, do you not see him getting replaced for Alex Smith? Honestly. And I can see that happening. So I can see where he's coming from with that.
That's going to be a great quarterback battle, though, for training camp. Alex Smith and Dwayne Haskins. That's going to be one of the quarterback battles to watch in training camp.
Similar to what we're thinking, or what Darius is thinking, that there could be a QB battle with Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham. But Jarrett Stidham kind of ranks at like the rock bottom right now. Speaking of the rock, we're going to move into our final topic of the day, which moves into The Rock having purchased the XFL along with a finance group and his ex-wife, Danny Garcia, for only $15 million. First off, before we move into it, how can you have such a great relationship that's dirty? No, that's dirty. How can you just fathom the fact that you and your ex-wife bought a sports league together? That is an accomplishment in and of itself.
That is goals right there.
And for so cheap, $15 million, that's like, middle of the pack quarterback money. That's Ryan Fitzpatrick salary right there. So it's a great price for The Rock. But now brings the question. Because of that purchase, did The Rock save the XFL by doing so? Because we've seen when stars have bought failing brands in the past that it doesn't always make the comeback that the people think they're going to do. Back in 2011, Justin Timberlake bought MySpace. And look where it is now. So, Darius, I want you to start off real quick. Does The Rock purchasing the XFL bring it back to life, or is it still going to stay at the rock bottom?
So the thing about the XFL, I don't really think it needed that much saving. I think the XFL, before it got canceled, was actually a very entertaining league. I actually enjoyed watching it when it came on. I loved the player interviews on the sidelines. I loved the different things, the kickoff rule, different things like that. But I think what The Rock is going to do, he is going to market this and make it more. One, I think it's going to be make it more profitable because it's The Rock, and he got it for $15 million. It's going to be one of those deals where it's like, when you look back at it, Vince McMahon, I believe the owner of the XFL, should have sold it for more, because I feel like The Rock is going to get a lot more out of it. But that just shows you the relationship that Vince McMahon and The Rock has, that he was able to get it for $15 million. But I believe that The Rock will make this league a very profitable league. I think it is going to somehow, in a weird way, years to come, if it maintains the success, it's going to start to compete with the NFL, because once the NFL season is over, you get this type of football, which is a different brand of football. And like I said, when you were watching it, you saw that they had fans. You saw that they had some solid numbers just from the short period of time that they were on. Is it going to surpass the NFL? Absolutely not. We know the NFL is a juggernaut, especially just off of one game, the Super Bowl. But I think The Rock is going to. He got his wish. If you watch the show The Ballers, the last very season he owned the Kansas City Chiefs. Now he owns part ownership of a league. So I definitely think he's going to help take this league to that next level that it can reach. So I think it's a good move for The Rock, and it puts more money in his pockets.
All right, Darren, do you smell what The Rock is cooking?
Can you smell the money that this is going to be making? I love the XFL, honestly. I really did. It's fun. It's fun. It gives you something to do when football's not on. The NFL is still going to be the NFL. Mm-hmm. But the XFL, as Darius said, didn't really need saving. It needed more funds. The coronavirus hit it and it really messed it up. But unlike I believe it was the AAF, it wasn't as much hurt for all purpose, everything just not right. The XFL just needed the funds. And The Rock, whatever he touches his hand on of recently, it's like gold. Ballers, gold. People do not understand how great of a show that is when it comes to the life of a football player and the behind the scenes. You got to understand, he helped get the stadium built in that show for the Rams. He helped, like Darius said, he brought into the Kansas City Chiefs. He was everything, and him having that just on the show shows you he doesn't just know it kind of a little bit. He knows what it takes to run. He understands, hey, this has to be done, this has to be done, this has to be done. But that show was very accurate. Then you got to think about this. He just had another show get put on, I believe it was NBC, the Titan Games. It is very, very much an exciting show. It is popping off very much. And a lot of the movies that he's in is just always a blockbuster movie. He has the magnitude to really bring the XFL new fans, new audience, new money. More people are going to be interested in watching the XFL just because of The Rock's name on it.
Mm-hmm.
People know who Vince McMahon is, but it's The Rock, people.
Avery, do you smell what The Rock cooking here with the XFL?
Hey, yo. So first, I think the quarterback that takes the biggest leap, I'm agree with Darius. I think it's going to be Daniel Jones with the weapons that he has. So, XFL, I'm ecstatic. I think The Rock is a can't miss. To Darren's points, he's such a big star. His persona and how much he loves football as well. That's the other thing. As passionate is about football, and everybody knows his days in Miami and the fact that he wanted to play football and different things like that. So in the NFL, so I think it's great. He's going to be able to market to different audiences as well. Him having a wrestling background and having that kind of smash mouth type of mentality helps as well. So I think that The Rock buying the XFL was probably the best thing for it. I mean, what better face right now in 2020 would you rather have promoting or supporting your business than the likes of The Rock or a Kevin Hart or a Steph Curry, Patrick Mahomes, big name guys in entertainment industry. So I think The Rock did the XFL a good thing by buying it.
Over under on whether The Rock will let Kevin Hart buy an XFL team.
Over.
Over?
Kevin Hart definitely. Kevin Hart, I think he'll definitely let Kevin Hart, if not be a owner, be co-owner of an XFL team. I definitely could see Kevin Hart dipping his hands in one of the teams just to obviously, like I said, it's a money move. It's chess, not checkers. And I think The Rock is a great businessman. So I definitely could see it. Go ahead.
My favorite part about it is that, I mean, he's not the sole owner, but So I'm appreciative. I'm appreciative of the fact that that's a person of color in that type of position, a majority owner of a franchise like that. So that's another thing that's great for me with The Rock purchasing being the majority owner of the XFL.
Darren, real quick, does Kevin Hart become a team owner in the XFL in the future?
After a lot of trash talk, I got the over. After a lot of trash talk, because it seems as though anytime The Rock and Kevin Hart is around, it's a feud. And listen, if you did not see what was going on when they were making Jumanji and Central Intelligence behind the scenes, oh, they were hilarious. So I know it's going to be something like that. But those two together make magic, and I can definitely see Kevin Hart getting into that, because you got to think about it. Kevin Hart is not only just a comedian. He's a comedian, a mogul. He has his own production company. He does a lot of things. He has his hand in a lot of things. So I can see him wanting to be a part of this. I can see him wanting to do it. So I got the
Kevin Hart back in 2017 got drunk on national television after the Eagles won the Super Bowl and spit out some hot takes that I cannot repeat on this broadcast. But that will open the door for us for our hot takes of today. And I know that everyone's primed with something. I'm going to save mine for the very end, but I'm going to start with the Baltimore Ravens fan here and going out with Darren. Darren, what do you lay it on me? What's your hot take?
All right, so we already know my first hot take in the chat was Lamar Jackson will win the Super Bowl before Sam Darnold even gets to the playoffs. But my second one, and this one is a little bit hot because it goes right along with who I think will be a really, really, really good bump this year. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals not only win the AFC West over the 49ers and the Seahawks, but they win a playoff game. Listen, you got to understand me here. Not only did that offense get better, that defense, they started collecting more and more pieces. That defensive line is starting to look a little bit better. They got another linebacker for that defense. And on top of that, who did they get at number 8, people? Was that? Oh, wait, I remember. Isaiah Simmons from Clemson, the multi-purpose guy that can do everything. Just a little bit of everything. And I feel like Patrick Peterson will come back. He did have a kind of a down here last year, you know. He did have the suspension. It's okay. It's okay. Because Pat P also has now a running mate, which he hasn't had in a very long time. So Patrick Peterson doing well. Buda Baker is now becoming more known, which I feel like is very underrated because he's a pretty good safety, if you ask me. I like the Cardinals' chances this year. I do. Yeah.
Throw it over to Avery with his hot take of the day.
That's not a bad hot take. I'm not mad at that. I wouldn't say it's too spicy because the Cardinals, to your point, have been building a nice team. My hot take is that Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley will both re-solidify themselves as top 5 backs in this league. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
Can we get a guess? Can we get a number for the Russian? I just want the Russian.
I kind of want deep depth into that, man. You can't just tease that.
Okay, so I think number 1 is going to be Saquon. Number 2 is going to be Christian. Number 3 is going to be Zeke. Number 4, selfishly, I believe is going to be Todd. And number 5 is going to be Le'Veon. I think that with what the Jets want to do offensively and what the Falcons did on the offensive line, I think it bodes well for both backs. I think, again, we forget that they can both catch the ball out of the backfield. We would forget that they're both 230-pound running backs as well, so they're hard to tackle. I would say for Le'Veon Bell, I could see 1,200 yards rushing and maybe 600 to 800 yards receiving. Todd Gurley, I would see 500 to 700 yards receiving, and I'm hoping for between 12 and 1,400 yards rushing.
So the over for 12 for both running backs. Okay.
All right, I'll give that medium heat enough to sizzle my burger for about 5 minutes on each side, just to get it a little bit medium down into the corner. Darius, hot take. Just lay it on me.
Mine's a little warm. My man is Christian McCaffrey out in Carolina. wins MVP. I believe the last person to win MVP at the running back position was Adrian Peterson. Not only does he win MVP, but he has another back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing and 1,000-yard receiving, and he has over 10+ rushing touchdowns and 10+ receiving touchdowns.
You're right. That was pretty warm. Like, lukewarm.
I didn't have anything hot. I didn't have anything hot. We all
know the Panthers run through CMC.
Nah, not today. Not
We all
next
know.
week.
We all know CMC
right.
makes the Panthers go.
All right. Well, my hot take comes like a little bit. I don't know how hot I want it to be, but I did mention it in the chat, and it has to do with the Patriots. And I predict that Bill Belichick will trade Cam Newton before Week 8 of the trade deadline this year. And let me explain why. Bill Belichick is not afraid to make a big move on anybody. He traded Randy Moss. He let Jamie Collins go to the Browns. He's not afraid. He doesn't care. He let Tom Brady go, for goodness sake, to go down to Tampa because he knows he doesn't need him in that system. So, and he drafted Jared Stidham, just had like a backup there. But he said, like Belichick said in press conferences, and because I have two friends who are currently covering the Patriots in training camp, that this is an open competition at quarterback. Cam Newton's not guaranteed the job, so that means that should Cam not be able to like fully immerse himself in the Patriot way, I'm convinced that he can flip Cam for at least a second-round pick to any quarterback team that'll go down, either because a quarterback catches the coronavirus or goes down with a massive injury. Either way, Cam Newton's not going to be a Patriot by the end of 2020. I'd love to hear the thoughts. Roll it on me. Come on.
No.
I disagree.
No. That wasn't heat, man.
No, that was some heat. That was some heat, but I disagree. That was definitely spicy, but I just disagree.
Okay, I want to hear from the Patriot. I want to hear from the Patriots fan first on why he disagrees, and then 28-3 right afterwards.
I disagree, and simply just because we gotta understand, Cam Newton has a chip on his shoulder. Like he wants to prove himself, so he is going to go out there and compete. And you have to remember, this guy has something that Jared Stidham does not have: experience. He has experience. He's been to the playoffs. Now, I do understand why you may think that the only possible way Cam Newton gets traded, and I don't even think he would get Belichick would trade him. I think Belichick would just bench him and let Stidham come in. I don't really see Cam, getting traded. And you got to understand, what team would give up a second-round pick for Cam Newton at that age of 30 if he's struggling during that point of the season? I do think it's going to be a quarterback battle, and it's going to be an interesting one. I never thought Cam was going to walk in and win the starting position. No, I want Cam Newton and Jared Stidham to actually, and even Brian Hoyer, I wanted it to be a very competitive competition. And I wish we had preseason, because then we would get to see those three guys really go at it. It's sad that we have to see it in week 1, but I definitely don't think Cam Newton's going to be traded. I would be surprised if he gets traded.
Darren raised his hand when saying meaning that the Baltimore Ravens would trade for Cam, which I don't think so, because you already have RG3 on the roster. You can't keep adding in former first-round picks onto the roster already. I will get private, because it is Avery's turn. It is Avery's turn. Avery, let it out.
I mean, listen, I think that I just disagree, right? I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, but I disagree that that's going to happen. I just think that, to Darius's point, Cam is hungry. Cam is a dog. Let's not forget that Cam, prior to being injured the last 2 seasons, was still putting up numbers comparable to his MVP season. He was 11-5 before he got hurt. Let's not forget that this guy can ball in his game. He's opened the door for the likes of guys like Lamar Jackson and different things like that. I mean, with his ability to run, as he stated on his on his interview on OBJ's podcast on his YouTube. Josh McDaniels, you're going to be able to call some things that you've never been able to call before with me. You've never been able to do those things with Tom Brady. So for the last 20 years, you haven't been able to do this. Now it's a new game, and you're in a situation where you're in a division where the Bills defense ain't no joke. The Jets look to be getting healthier. and you don't. The tide is turning, so why not? Why not? I just think Cam is going to have a phenomenal season. I go back to my hot take from a couple of weeks ago. I have Cam Newton winning MVP.
Let it rip, Darren.
So, Baltimore Ravens will not be trading for no Cam Newton. We good. That's not who I meant. But I do see this happening. If he was to get traded, I can think of two teams right now that would trade for him. Especially if it's a little bit into the season, the quarterbacks aren't doing too well, and particularly one gets hurt because he just consistently throws so many picks of lately. The Colts and the Dolphins. The Colts because one, if they truly trusted Jacoby Brissett, they wouldn't have signed Phillip Rivers. And if Phillip Rivers consistently throws a bunch more picks, I can see them possibly taking the chance on Cam Newton. Second, the Dolphins. If they do not want to trust the health of Tua and don't want to put him out there too early, and Ryan Fitzpatrick is who Ryan Fitzpatrick is, where he is good one year and bad the next, put Cam in for a year. Let him be the stopgap. Better than Ryan Fitzpatrick, people.
Now you just talking.
You know, I would love to continue this debate further on, but unfortunately, we're running out of time for today. So we're gonna wrap it up here on the Air It Up podcast. Remember, for Inside the Hashes, you can check us out on our social medias. On Twitter, we are Inside Hashes. On Instagram, we are at Inside the Hashes. On Facebook, we are Inside the Hashes, the football group. You can also find all these podcasts, all our player interviews, anything that's audio and video. You can find us on Spotify, on Anchor, on Apple Podcasts. Anywhere that you listen to podcasts, Inside the Hashes is there. I'm Juan Pablo Godin Camargo. I was joined by Darius Riddick, Avery Collins, and Darren Braxton.
Big trust.
I chopped that up.
Cam Newton for
MVP,
MVP, man.
Big trust. Woo woo.
Cam Newton.
Have a good night, everybody.
Man.